Hey guys, and welcome to The Celebrity Expert, your number one source for all things TV and celebrities. My name is Elijah, and recently Game of Thrones has kind of come under a lot of fire, surprisingly, from its own fan base. But is the hate that Game of Thrones is currently getting actually deserved? We're going to talk about that today. Before we jump into all of the criticism surrounding this television show, one thing is definitely for certain. The journey to where we have been on this show has been a pretty great ride. The storytelling, more or less since the beginning, has been really strong, and despite some of the flaws that are kind of pointed out by several different fans and critics, the show really has provided top tier quality content for a long time, and I think that people will still appreciate this show and the legacy that it has created over the last decade almost, rather than getting caught up with kind of some of the issues that have happened in this last season. So let's take a look at some of the criticisms. From what it looks like, just based off of what we've experienced watching through this new season of Game of Thrones, along with what the community is saying, it really feels like there's something off in the overall pacing of this season and just how they've attempted to wrap up a lot of the storylines. While we believe that it's never good for shows to run longer than what they should and should always try to come to a full conclusion at some point, it really feels like in Game of Thrones they kind of decided to end maybe more abruptly than what we initially thought it should. Season 7 left off, there were a lot of moving characters, plot lines, and other things that would have to find a conclusion somehow in the allotted 6 episodes that season 8 has had. And while now a lot of people blame the writers for kind of not having as strong of quality of content as we've seen in previous seasons, it might be just because they've been really forced against a wall to tie up every loose end and kind of move through it in a relatively quick way with only 6 episodes to work with. And with the end of this all coming closer into sight, it's understandable why people are upset, because the journey through this last season hasn't been as fulfilling as people had hoped it would be. A lot of the criticisms of the season really started off with the initial face-off with the battle against the Night King. This was something that had been hinted at, alluded at, and really just been this moving plotline that constantly acted as a threat since the very beginning conception of this show, and it was supposed to be a make or break feeling and finale to everything that this show has been built upon besides the actual Game of Thrones. It really felt like in this season, the plot and pacing to get to where the Night King dies in this face-off was absolutely too quickly executed. At this point, we don't have any problem with the fact that the Night King is defeated or the way the Night King is defeated. However, the issues really start to rest in the fact that it felt very rushed, which made the whole grand scheme and the grand scope of everything that Game of Thrones have tried to build over the years feel cheapened by them just kind of quickly and swiftly killing off and closing off this plotline so they can quickly jump back into the other moving parts and wrap up who's going to win this whole thing. Even with those criticisms though, a lot of fans were willing to overlook it if it felt like things kind of got back on track again, and the major problem is that with the next episode, besides it just kind of not being a great episode, there was just a lot of weak points throughout the episode we saw the week before this last one. Even in this sense, the pacing still felt kind of off, and it just felt like maybe there wasn't as much inspiration behind the team making Game of Thrones this season as maybe there was when it was an up-and-coming show. I mean, there was the whole coffee cup scandal, which wasn't that big of a deal, but it just shows that there was a major lack of attention to detail by everyone who worked on the post-production even, and they kind of play a major role in how pacing goes in these episodes, and they somehow missed that. That was such a major and obvious mess up. It doesn't break the show, and at least they fixed it, but there's still something to be noted, the fact that it just wasn't a big enough deal or caught by anyone who was actually working on this. And then we had Sunday's episode, which was probably one of the most divisive episodes we have seen from Game of Thrones in the entire history of the show. Sure, there's been episodes in the past that had some really harsh things happen in them, and people had strong feelings about them, but the way that they handled a lot of the plot points in Sunday's episode was really frowned upon by many fans. Most notably, the evolution of Daenerys, who kind of went down this crazy Mad Queen path and just literally killed just a ton of people for the sake of doing it because she's kind of gone crazy. Now, a lot of people are arguing that this feels very out of character for Daenerys to go and do this, and to an extent we agree, but also they've been hinting that this would be a major possibility for a very long time, since almost the beginning of the show, that she had the capability to evolve into this character that was completely 180 degrees different from where she was at the beginning of everything. We really don't hate the idea of her kind of making her way into becoming this antagonistic character, but the fact that they had to put all of this character development into just 6 episodes, it feels like this is a completely different character than the character we had even just an episode ago. It just doesn't feel like there's been this natural progression over time. If we look at TV shows in the past that have done character development really well, like Breaking Bad, we see this progression of a character completely change and change again and completely evolve, and everything that happens to that character and all of the actions kind of have a route and a spiral out of control that you can track. Where with this, it just felt like they were always planning on taking that character there, but they didn't know how to connect the dots from where Daenerys would end in the series and where Daenerys started in this season. And they really had their hands tied as to where and how they could actually wrap it up. Even in 6 episodes, it's not enough time to try to make these major character developments happen in such a short period of time and make it feel believable. Another major issue coming from the last episode is Cersei's death. I don't have any problem with her dying here, but it was just the way that this character, who's been a major also player in this whole series, has kind of just had a death that was written off relatively quickly in a way. And this character has done some terrible things, and while this character by no means deserved any type of noble death, it would have been really nice if maybe they did something gruesome, or just something at least to the same level of the awful things that we've seen this character be capable of. Then we look to Jaime, who also died, and it's really disappointing with how they made this character, who was pretty awful if you think about it from the beginning, and just go through so many different character arcs and really have some development in the way that we hoped Daenerys would maybe have some development, and just be kind of brushed off and thrown in the heap of extra deaths that they had to tie loose ends on before they got to the final episode. And these are just a couple of the major issues people are really looking at. There's the issues with the fact that the dragon is so much more powerful than when the dragons were even in a group of 3. So that's a little bit weird that this dragon is just a little bit more overpowered than they kind of had showed us in the past. It was supposed to be more of an even fight, and it just felt like things wrapped up and cleaned up a little bit quickly and too directly, rather than the same kind of rough edges that Game of Thrones has always had before this. Honestly, what does this mean for the future of this show, with only a little bit of content left before everything finally reaches that final conclusion? Did this ruin the show? Did this season really ruin everything that this show has created? I would still say no. At least we're getting a full-on finale, and even if this next episode is great and a good conclusion in one way or another, this hiccup that's kind of happened in this last season will probably always be remembered. But let's just hope that the final episode really just kicks things off and make us remember why we have dedicated all of this time into this show. We still don't really know to what extent we're going to see in this next season. Really, we would have loved for them to maybe take the two main points that have happened this season, the battle with the Night King, and then the final conclusion that we're seeing now, and maybe split it up into 2 seasons instead of trying to cram it into 6 episodes. And maybe that would have worked better, but it just looks like there was some oversight in how they thought they could conclude this story, and they just didn't give themselves enough time to tell the story that they really wanted to tell, and it is somewhat disappointing to an extent. And to think this season took 2 years to make, and it just really was kind of the resources that were used in making this season and the time that was used was just focused on the wrong things clearly, and not necessarily on the story, which has always been the most important part, not necessarily the action sequences. But that's just what we think. We'd love to hear your guys' ideas. Game of Thrones isn't by any means a bad show now, but it definitely has had some conflicting moments in this last season. But let us know what you're thinking. Alright guys, what did you think of today's video? Do you dislike where they've gone with the new season of Game of Thrones? Let us know what you're thinking in the comment section down below, and we'll see you all next time with a brand new video. Bye guys.
I'm about to.
Hi everybody.
Hey everybody, how you doing?
Hi.
See you guys.
Know anybody?